Today I want to talk about how prices influence consumers, right? So, if you have a small business out there, you're probably looking at pricing. You're probably trying to understand how it affects future purchases, current customers, and things like that. But I want to take it back, right? So this week was the 5-year anniversary. Call it an anniversary. I don't know if that's good or bad, what we're talking about, but when COVID shut down basically the world. Not a good thing. But we did see some interesting things happen with prices, right? So prices started to elevate. People went a little crazy in buying toilet paper for whatever reason. But imagine that your house value went up 40%, right? So in 2020 to 2022, home prices went up on average. The average home price went up 40%, right? Why did that happen? Well, we need to look at that, and we need to understand that consumers are human beings, and we react to different things, and we react very similarly. So in that case, a lot of people went out there and they said, okay, well, I'm starting to work remotely. I don't want to stare at, maybe I don't have a view. Maybe I'm not in an area that really is easy to kind of enjoy myself and get out and about. So a lot of people started moving to warmer climates, started moving to more scenic views and buying up real estate in those areas. So we saw a massive influx of individuals into certain places, which then started to get bidding wars and all this other stuff. Why are we talking about that today? Well, because we have to understand that pricing really does affect your customers, right? So we're going to go through a bunch of different ideas today. And we're going to share some stories, and we're going to, see what you would do kind of in that space. And, one of those, I've kind of outlined 6 different ways today, and I could go on for days. There's a great book out there called The Art of Pricing, which I read years ago. And it kind of goes into each of the individual pieces. But, most of us are familiar. We've probably gone to the grocery store. We see something, and it's a 3-for-1, a 2-for-1, a 4-for-1, whatever it may be, right? And for years, and I would say probably, I think around like 23 years, I'm going to show my inner nerd here, but we've had a fantasy football league. And one of my closest, dearest friends, he usually stops and picks up the chips for the guys as we're getting ready for this, right? And he always brings 3 bags of chips. And I always say to him, why 3? There's 12 of us. I mean, there's usually 2 bags left over every single time. And he says, well, it's always a 3-for-1 or it's a 4-for-1. And, as I hear this, I always kind of laugh because I know what's happening here. And what's happening is the sign says 3-for-1, and that's great, but technically they're on sale, but you can buy just 1 and get the sale price many times, right? So you don't have to buy 3, you don't have to buy 4. You can get the sale price on just 1 or 2 bags, unless it is explicitly says
must buy 3.
Must buy 3, right? So looking at that and seeing the 3-for-1, his mind automatically goes to, I have to buy 3 to get this, this price, and that's fine. But how does that affect a small business? Well, if you're trying to boost your sales, you're trying to boost your average ticket by putting some simple signage out there, do a 2-for-1 or a 3-for-1. You can boost those purchases even when you're just going to offer a sale anyway. That's fine, but instead of just offering the sale and providing a 50% off, maybe do a 2-for-1 and see what happens, right? More people will buy, and then you're moving more product. So that's just one idea.
I went grocery shopping last night we are in the Strachan Van Til Studios. It's a local chain of grocery stores, 21 or so. And they are running a lot with the soft drinks of that. Mm-hmm. And, I need 2 6-packs of soft drinks. I need I buy a decaffeinated Coke, Diet Coke, and a regular Diet Coke. And I don't need any more than that.
Right.
And so they say, hey, you can get the $5 price if you buy all, but you have to buy 3. Otherwise, it's like 6 something or whatever. Right. So I added up, and I'm like, gosh, I'm getting the last 6-pack for like $2, right?
Yeah.
So I buy it, And every time I bring it home, the wife's like, "Why'd you buy so much Diet
Uh-huh.
Coke? This is a month's supply." But they push me to it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do they still make money on that last purchase? I don't know.
Sure. It's just, it's spread out over the number of units that are sold. So, you know, you're guilty of it. I'm guilty of it. I think we're all guilty of buying more than we actually need and getting back home and realizing that, you know, unfortunately, we still have soap from when COVID happened, right? When it first rolled out. Love my wife, love the fact that she had us prepared with soap, but we still have soap today because we got a few deals.
Gosh, I did not realize it's been 5 years. It
Right.
was I think it changed so many lives, but it changed us here too in terms of we went, it was kind of a weird time for media. Really, the streaming part of it really took off because so many people were home.
Right.
So we had to look at, how we still can't price everything right. So you're going to tell us today some tips on how to price your product or service as a small business.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we talked about the quantity discounts. That's one, right? But we talk a lot on this podcast about kind of working with other companies, and bundling is a huge one, right? So you could start to bundle internally. We see this with shampoo and conditioner, right? So people buy shampoo and conditioner together as a bundled price, maybe in the same packaging. Um, let's go back to McDonald's, kind of made way back when they had the value meal when it first launched. That kind of changed the entire industry. Instead of buying a hamburger and a French fry and a drink, now you had this bundle deal. And most people now order by picking a number instead of saying what they really want. So those are simple examples of bundling. But when it comes to your small business, you can bundle things together as well. It could be internal. It could be in your own location. It can be in your own company. Bundling services, right? So I know you talk about HVAC a lot. Can you bundle services there where you have maybe it's getting a little bit warmer as we get into AC season. Obviously people want their AC looked at and cleaned up and make sure everything's running. So you've got that first initial meeting where you meet with them about their AC service. But you could also bundle as you get into late fall, you could bundle those two services together and say, all right, we'll come and look at your furnace. And instead of just selling that AC service now, you could sell the AC and the furnace service on the back end. So you're actually pushing dollars forward, and you're bundling those two services right now.
So for the HVAC people, and we talk about it so much, I'm sure we're getting some listeners there, and you would right now, all right, hey, come out and do your AC. But if you sign, I'll also come out and look at your furnace in October or September. Right. And then, quite frankly, if I could make another suggestion, and then, mid-winter, everything's working fine, we'll also we'll come out and clean all your ducts for
Right.
X amount. And
Right.
that basically the trifecta for the HVAC person.
Right. So, I mean, you may be at, and I don't know what the pricing is, but let's just say it's $70 or $79 for somebody to come out and look at your AC. If you're at $79 there, you're at $79 on the furnace side, and then you have the duct cleaning. When you bundle those three services together, people may be getting a discount at that point, but realize that you're probably not getting that service in the future because they're not thinking about it, right? So by bundling it together and giving them the discount and the pricing, you're actually getting more in the end than you normally would, because people don't necessarily come back in the fall and go, oh, well, let's have our furnace looked at, or let's have our ducts cleaned, and so forth.
Let's go on another pricing mechanism you got to think about. My neighbor, actually all my neighbors do the same thing. Somebody comes out and puts their Christmas lights up and
Right.
takes them down.
Right.
And I've been around too long. I just put up a huge tree in the window, and me and the wife, or that's all that's there. But all these people have kids, and they're like, all right, let's just get a bunch of Christmas lights. But I'm not going up there. Some of the houses are old,
Right.
and they build them, straight up, so they're pretty high up there. Every one of them's like, I'm not going on that roof if I don't have to. The Christmas light guy comes out and he does 3 houses right there.
Right.
So that is an example of another way to price things.
Yeah.
What is it?
So, it's a selling tactic, I guess, is what you would say. It's more on the rental side, right? So, you can go out and buy Christmas lights all day long. But if you're a landscaper, for example, you're not doing a ton of landscaping in the wintertime. So what we've seen is this trend over the last few years, and I think it started with COVID. You saw a lot of these people putting these happy birthday signs in the front yard and happy anniversary, and it was this kind of hands-off way for landscapers and that to kind of go out and do different things. What we're seeing though is a rental market is starting to pop up in certain industries that where you used to sell Christmas lights or you used to sell certain things. We've got a couple of examples. I've rented tools before. We're seeing people that are renting pets for a day at this point. Believe it or not, you can rent a casket for a day. Basically, it's there for the wake, and then they switch things out as you go into the ground. So from a Christmas lights perspective, can you go buy Christmas lights, and then the only thing that you're being charged on is the labor here on out? Now, mind you, if it's like my neighborhood, people are paying a fortune to put these Christmas lights up.
Oh, it is.
Right? And, I've got my neighbors, my son and I put our Christmas lights up, and we've made it so it's extremely simple. But I watch other neighbors, and I've got one that's afraid to climb the ladder, but he's up on the ladder every single year, and he does it. And then you have all of a sudden there's just landscapers everywhere that have come in, and they're putting all these lights up on every house in the entire neighborhood. And the neighborhood looks amazing, but I don't even want to know what they're paying for it, right? But what we're saying here on a pricing level, you're typically selling something of value, and it's going out the door. With this, what we're doing is you can actually start to price things a little bit different with a rental side, and you can, take the Christmas lights and buy those Christmas lights, and they may last we'll say 3-4 years. Let's be honest. You buy Christmas lights for 3-4 years, and the only thing you're paying is labor, and you're charging somebody $1,000-$1,500 to put up these Christmas lights, which is, and I've heard even higher than that. That's a pretty good bang for your buck. Look into those types of pricing strategies and those types of services, and I think you'll understand that you may have a product or two that you or even service that you can do the same with in your own business.
Let's move on to some other stuff. The 9 and 0 effect.
So this is more of a psychological thing, right? So if you see something that's $49.99, how much is it?
It's $50.
It's $50. That's exactly what it is. It's 50 and some change based on sales tax. Most of us will say it's $49. And I hear this all the time, and I joke in my household that my wife says it all the time. If it's $7.99, it's $7 to her. Like, we just forget the 99 cents. When you see a 99 at the end of a number, it's basically considered a discount, right? So we put 99s at the end. It's a psychological factor that we can associate with a discount. You see $99.99, it's not $100. That's a threshold, right? $19.99, that's a threshold to $20. $49.99, that's a threshold to $50. There are certain thresholds that we will pay or we won't pay, right? So if you tell me that to hang my Christmas lights is going to be $2.99 or it's going to be $14.99, I'm going to look at that $14.99 and go, that's pretty expensive. If I see $2.99, all right, maybe I'll pay for that, right? When you throw a 0 at the end, though, if you say it's $1,500 or you say it's $50, that is a firm line in the sand. It's saying this is supposed to look that way. It's supposed to be of value. Right? So the 99 is supposed to be more discount, whereas the zeros are supposed to express a little bit more of a finite line of saying that this is worth its money.
So I'll give you an example. Our cheapest ad package here is $2,000 for the year, and it sounds like nothing, but you don't get a lot for it. But you basically sponsor one high school, and your ads go on that, and we make you a TV commercial and all that. So we did an A/B test, and Matt Hansen, I took his MBA classes. Everything's an A/B test. All right, send this email out with that on it. Send that one out. See which one does better. I mean, A/B tests are pretty. It's almost like X's and O's of the computer code. So we did a bunch one year at $19.99 and sent it out at $2,000. And 2000 did way better.
Yep.
And I could not believe
It's the
that.
value.
And
Yeah.
we had not been all these years. And one of the guys suggested just make it easy because these people, they don't want to deal with that. They just want to write a check and be done.
Yes.
And it seemed as if it made it more credible and more solid than, hey, come on down and buy Earl Scheib auto painting for, $5.99 instead of just 600 at a really good painting place.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. You set the line, right? So we did the exact same thing. I had it was a sales situation that we were dealing with, and the typical price that people were paying was about $2,500. We looked at this and I said, okay, how are we doing this? And it was almost like a good, better, best, right? And that was the good price. So it was, you had good at 2,500, you had better at 5,000, you had best at 10,000. And, when we looked at this, I said, okay, people are taking the good because they want to be part of something without spending a ton of money. I said, what if we took the good and we elevated the good to the better, right? And that becomes the new good, which was the 5,000. Then we took the better, which then went from 10,000 and, so we were moving all of the numbers up, right? So we went from 2,500, 5,000, 10,000 to 5,000, 10,000, 20,000. What do you think happened?
You didn't sell as much.
Not a single person blinked. They said, sure, we'll take the 5,000 one. We doubled our sales by simply moving the scale because people just wanted to be part of this, that what we were doing. But we just moved the numbers. That's the only thing we did different. And people said, okay, well, I'll take the 5,000 one. They just wanted to be part of it. Now, what you're talking about is on the flip side. People want the best that they can get. But if the best is too expensive for them, they're not going to go all the way to the bottom, right? So let's say you're going to go buy a car. You have good, better, best. And you have the car that it's good. It'll get you from point A to point B, but it doesn't have any bells or whistles. It's, it's one of those things where it's just a car. Then you have better, which it gets you from point A to point B, but it has one or two of the bells or whistles. Then you have the best car, right? So this is the car that comes direct off the brand new showroom lot, has all the bells and whistles, everything that you've always wanted in a car. Your price point of what you're trying to get at, let's say, is 40,000, right? The best is at 80. Are you willing to go that high for all the bells and whistles? Most people aren't, right? So you start to pull back and you go, okay, well, I want that car, but can I still get that car stripped down a little bit? And you start to play those games, right? You may be able to get there. You may be able to not. The car that I bought, right, goes anywhere from, it was like from 40 to 80,000, depending on bells and whistles, right? I looked at it and I said, okay, there's this feature and this feature and this feature, none of which I needed. I see a car from getting me from point A to point B. So I stripped it down, right? I went all the way back down and got it down into the level where I wanted to be.
Foam seats?
No, they're actually leather seats.
Oh, okay.
But that's what I mean. Like you play this back and forth in your mind what you're willing to spend, and that's a pricing issue, right? So we have good, better, best. When you go to Starbucks and you buy, I still say small, medium, and large. My daughter makes fun of me that I don't use the terms, but are you buying a small, medium, or large? When you go to McDonald's and you buy a fry, are you buying the small, medium, or large? Are you buying extra large? I remember when I was a kid, we had normal size candy bars. Now everything is Godzilla sized, right? I mean, everything is huge, but then you have the smaller versions. And they've elevated even those prices from where they were back in the day because they can. It's being pulled. That psychological pricing is pulling it up because you're comparing it to the king size, the Godzilla size, right? Yeah. So this is what I mean. When we talk about pricing, you really have to understand what's going on with consumers and how we look at all of this.
All right, one more, and then we'll sum up here. I know exactly what you're going to talk about this because I have a bunch of family that grew up in the Orlando area, and every year we would go down and stay with them. and we would get the Orlando area pricing on everything.
Right.
And I could not believe how much less it was. I went on a honeymoon. I had no money, of course, and we go on a honeymoon. We drive down there and stay in Captiva Island. And as a Florida resident, you could stay for $99 a night.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're anybody else, it was $249.
Right.
Now, that's a huge disparity, but that kind of stuff happens, and you can do that as a small business, and you're going to tell us how.
Yeah, it's, if you get customers from multiple locations, right? So we talk about Disney World, and Disney gives a discount to Florida residents, and that's just because if it's in your backyard, you don't go that often. Let's be honest, right? It's there. Okay, we'll go occasionally, but it's not something that you're actively seeking out. So what they're trying to do is you have this massive influx of individuals coming from all over the world, but they're not pulling from the Florida market. It's the same thing that we have here right outside Chicago, right? So we have Six Flags. How many times have you gone to Six Flags in the last 5 years?
0.
Right? I've gone, I think, twice. And, it was one of those things where somebody had some kind of discount, local, whatever, right? So if you're pulling, if you have some kind of business that is pulling individuals from out of town, you can actually start to look at it from that perspective, right? So you have one price that is for out-of-towners and you have one price for people that are local. This could be for Airbnbs. This could be for, hotels. There's all kinds of different ways that we can look at this, but, realize that look at location and you can provide either a discount locally or charge a little bit more for those that are coming in from a farther location. The big brands are already doing it.
He's a Matt Hansen. To review, do prices secretly control your purchasing decisions? Listen to the whole podcast here. Quantity discounts, bundling, payment plans. We didn't really we didn't really talk about that too much. Let's hit that real quick.
No, payment plans. I mean, when we see it, we'll go back to your HVAC, right? Because you talk about it a lot. When you see a price for, let's say, $7,000 or $12,000 or $20,000 for an HVAC system, that's shocking to some people, to most people, I would say, right? Nobody's going to just cut a check and go with that, right? So how do we afford that? Well, if you're smart and if you're an HVAC person, you're going out there you've made some kind of connection with financing, and you're going out there and you're selling it as $79 a month or $29 a month or whatever. The auto industry has done this as well. We now have 8-year or 96-month payments for a car. Can you imagine, right? Like I'll go through 2 cars, if not 3 cars at that point. So imagine paying 96 months for a car, but it's out there. And there's some people that can do that, right? They hold on to a car forever. But that's what we mean by payment plans. So if you have a high ticket item, start to look into financing options that you can offer to your customers, and let's kill the blow a little bit more, because $20,000 to somebody is a lot of money.
Rental, 9 and 0 effect, good, better, best, and of course location. This is the mastering local marketing. I'm dyslexic.
You'll get it eventually.
Well, I'll never get it, actually. Anything that's reflexive, I'm screwed. Anyways, the Mastering Local Marketing podcast. He is Matt Hansen, clinical professor here at PNW. We're on the campus in my studios. I'm Jed TV, and WJOB. And she is Adriana Alvarez, a senior. She skipped a year at PNW, and she is our...
I didn't skip a year.
I thought, it was partly Matt Hansen who came up with this idea. Well, why don't you start taking students when they're sophomores so you won't lose them to the Big Ten Network and National Weather Services? And next thing you know, she's like, I got enough credits. They actually kicked me up a year. So it was, we should do a segment on false advertising. No, but Adriana, you do a great job with this podcast. Thank you so much. And once again, you can get it on Apple, Spotify. Please like it. Please tell your friends. Please share it. Until next time, we'll see you later.